You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs, daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. I appreciate you making us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Cougs. If you enjoy the conversation, but don't say, tell us in the comments down below. Tell us in the comments down below what your thoughts on the college football playoff are. Big thing happening across sports. I still think BYU got screwed, but that's neither here nor there. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. More on that fun later. A lot of cool stuff going on over at FanDuel. But today we're going to be breaking down the Houston and Butler basketball game from the weekend. Houston wins 79 to 51. 28 point victories what my head was at there. Big time win to get back in the win column for number 17 at the time of this recording. Houston. But we got to get into talking some about like what we learned in this game. Maybe did the need to play deeper? What happened with the second half with LJ Cryer? But first and foremost, the thing you got to talk about when you talk about this game is that Houston found a different gear. Houston started this game with Jojo Tugler back at center instead of Javier Francis, and that seemed to be a big part of the motor that the rest of the team fed off of. Coach Kelvin Sam said after the game that Jojo's been the best player on the team thus far, and that's why he earned the minutes. You got to go with the guys that played the best. Got to reward that, and that energy that Jojo naturally plays with the pogo stick kind of bounce, the long arms and wingspan touching every single pass, his like half the floor. It feels like it all seemed to just kind of bleed into the way everyone else played. And for what it's worth, I think that motor is something that this team was lacking in some of those, at least in the offense side of the ball. Some of those games earlier in the season, I think you saw it bleed into the way Jawan Roberts was playing. A lot of big time rebounds, a huge block early in this game. He was moving as well as I've seen him move in a long time, just flying around. You saw Milos Uzan and LJ Cryer fighting to get the ball up as fast as they could, just like get the ball in my hands, and we're running. The speed and intensity of Houston was palpable. It was visible on the TV screen. Jumped off the screen, and Butler looked blitzed. They really had no idea how to handle what was coming. Fumbling layups and transition on air, even like just didn't know what to do. And Butler's going to be a good basketball team this year. Had a couple key transfer in and those kind of guys, and Thad Matta is a good coach. They might not be the back they were with Gordon Hayward going to the NCAA championship game or whatever, but like they're going to be good. Didn't seem to matter. The speed, like also I think kind of rushed Houston's offense a little bit in the first half. You ultimately saw it kind of turn into attacking the rim, 28 points in the paint, a big time attacking the rim kind of game for Houston. And I think that you saw that kind of feed into a more rhythm set of shooting from the perimeter. Houston shot, I won't say Houston shot just 18 threes and went 9 of 18 from three outside. And some of those were deep shots, like what Emmanuel hit one, like his feet were on the logo at half court or whatever, right? But on the whole, it was a rhythm set shooting, a lot of kick out kind of stuff, and designed kind of get inside then outside kind of movements. And ultimately, I feel like what you saw out of that was just better shots, and that aggression that got the ball inside in the first place before it got outside led to more open shots. Speaking of outside, one thing that I thought that was interesting in this game, as far as the intensity of it all goes, was there was a clear effort to space the floor out and to leave a lot of guys outside the perimeter. And the starting lineup, we mentioned that Jojo Tugler started. Well, what was interesting to me was that Jawan Roberts seemed to be the guy of the two post players that floated along the perimeter more. He therefore gave Jojo Tugler on the roll after he got pick and roll kind of stuff a lot more what we would call roll room, right? He's attacking the rim. There's a lot more space and gaps to attack. Help side defenders trying to come tag the roll have to come farther away, right? And all that kind of stuff. And Roberts isn't necessarily the scoring threat from the perimeter that would normally open that kind of a thing up. When you think of a stretch four, that's the kind of position we're talking about here. And Roberts on offense lined up like that a lot, but it didn't seem to match. Butler covered him almost like he could, but more importantly, I thought Roberts did a great job when they got on the ball in the perimeter of turning into a quick handoff or a quick, like, solid pass or whatever to get the ball out of his hands, but make the defense kind of respect him out there, because if he's going into a handoff and his defender is sagged way off, suddenly the shooter coming off of that handoff is a lot more open because the help off of the screen that the handoff becomes isn't there, right? That's pretty obvious, I think. Um, the Roberts energy there for the when he's not banging down inside on offense was visible on defense. He's swiping at the ball, diving on the floor. He had a big block early. Houston had 5 blocks in this game. I feel like every single one of them was huge, huge, huge. Won the rebounding battle, 41-22. Interesting. So there's a concept defensively called an X out closeout, right? So if you run a pick and roll, and then we tag the roller from the help side, that means typically someone on the backside has to like cover 2 people while the front side action is happening, right? And so when they skip it, sometimes that means the help side guy has to go cover someone he wasn't initially guarding, and someone who rotated over to tag the roll or whatever has to go find the first. They end up crossing paths. We called it X out because they cross paths, right? There were several times in this game, especially early, where Houston was moving so fast that they would bluntly mess up the assignment on the X out closeout, right? Where they attack the wrong guy, they attack the guy that wasn't even getting passed to or whatever, and they were moving so fast it didn't seem to matter. They'd recover before Butler knew what happened after making a mistake. I think that while it's obviously first half of December, and there's plenty of room to get better and so on, that's the kind of speed we're talking about them playing with that really, really just, for lack of a better phrase, shook Butler and the Bulldogs. I think that's why you see them winning the rebounding battle, having so many blocks and so on. Butler made a crucial mistake here too, though. And Butler went to like a 3/4 court press at one point to try and kind of like make Houston slowly bring the ball up, and Houston just attacked it with the pass, right? Boom, 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 boom. It didn't slow them down at all. It was kind of interesting to watch how like Houston seemed unfazed by that aspect of what Butler was trying to do. There were times it felt like Houston and moving the ball around, almost, hitting mid-range jump shots like Terrence Arsenal did and stuff like that. Like, it's like Butler wasn't there. And I think when you're moving so much faster than the other team, you can, like, over the course of the game, get a gauge for they're sucking wind, they're tired, they're not going to elevate off the ground as much. Like, those kind, like, it looked like Butler was run ragged. There was no chance at any point, I felt like, where Butler was going to effort their way back into this game. Now, Houston might have had enough offensive trouble to bring them back in the first half. They got those things fixed in the second, but there was no way that I thought it was ever going to be Butler taking the game. It was going to be like Houston letting it slip away because they weren't having enough help on offense or whatever, and that fixed itself over the course of the game with some sets we'll talk about from LJ in the second half. I think I want to talk about the speed, though, and that's probably my last point about the speed intensity that Houston played with. Houston was very fresh, and I think that we also need to take into account that that was a big part of this. They played San Diego State, Notre Dame, and Alabama all in the course of a week in Vegas over Thanksgiving. They then had just over a week, not exactly a week if you go to hour off before playing Butler on Saturday. Those days mattered. They clearly watched film, they clearly got in the weight room and so on, but they also found time to get their legs back. San Diego State, they looked dog tired on offense. Alabama on the road, I guess in a neutral site in Vegas, by the end of that overtime period, I think it looked pretty clear like their offensive shots were struggling, right? Notre Dame wasn't as good as those other teams. I think we'll see San Diego State trounce the Notre Dame team if they ever get a chance to. But on the whole here, you're seeing, I think, part of the speed and impact of that in this game was being fresh and being rested. And that's kind of why you fight for things like seeding into the tournaments, as you can get maybe a little bit easier for first round. So the second round, you can kind of keep your legs fresh for, or maybe a little bit better Sweet 16 matchup for the Elite Eight game, you're really more rested up for, right? Because We remember, was it 2022, the Elite Eight game, that Houston just couldn't buy a basket because your legs are so tight, right? I think it was 2022. Anyway, I should have probably written that down, but I was trying to go off the top of my head right now in the middle of the night. I feel like the fresh legs is a big part of this. And I feel like this is a better representation of what Houston looks like. For what it's worth, as much as I want to talk about the offense struggling in the first half, 79 in this game, 70 against San Diego State, 80 against Alabama, 69 versus Auburn. They're going to be flirting around that low 70s mark. Now, some of those games were in overtime, obviously, but I think that's worth pointing out that they figured things out in the second half. And I want to talk about how LJ Cryer was a big part of that in the second unit. But first, I want to tell you about our buddies over at Omaha Steaks, because nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled taste and quality of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite. And right now, you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. We got some on our freezer right now. Trust me, they're worth it. Plus, you can score an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites. Also, this is a life hack here. If you buy someone else steaks, they'll cook them when you come over to give it to them. Boom. Just like that. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. That's 50% off at Omaha Steaks, OMHAA Steaks.com. An extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE, COLLEGE. Minimum purchases may apply.